talk just now about used cars, but of course, on the flip side, Japan, of course, is known as well, maybe some will call it the car capital, car country of the world. I mean, you've got Toyota, Lexus, Mitsubishi, Nissan, Subaru, Suzuki, Mazda, Honda, Isuzu. I mean, these are cars well known to Zimbabweans. In fact, you go onto the roads, many citizens are driving those. Now, but that also implies that Zimbabwe needs to also look at possibly having its own vehicle manufacturing. So how do you think Zimbabwe can achieve that? Start really looking at producing our own cars here, cutting down the import costs, maybe bringing kits in for cars and so forth. What would be your recommendations, looking at the experience Japan has and how strong your automobile industry is?
I'm not really sure of the current situation of Zimbabwe's automobile industry. But I understand there used to be some companies who produced the vehicles, including a few models of Mazda vehicles, which were very reliable for Zimbabwe's road conditions. That experience and the presence of a highly educated human workforce here in Zimbabwe may be a really promising factor for Zimbabwean automobile industry to restart operations. Also, I'd like to point out that the automobile industry is now undergoing really significant structural transformation in order to respond to the challenges of decarbonization. Any country could have an opportunity to make a big leapfrog by smoothly adapting their industry into this really transformational change or challenge. Yes.
Now, recently Toyota announced that they will be introducing a full lineup of electric vehicles with next generation batteries from 2026. These will be developed and manufactured by a new EV unit called BEV Factory, which was established in May. Now, Zimbabwe is currently the 6th largest lithium producer in the world and Africa's 4th largest nickel producing country. So what synergies do you believe could be developed in the electric vehicle value chain from a Zimbabwean perspective? We have the lithium, you have the companies that want to make lithium batteries for their EV cars. How do you think the synergies in that value chain, the EV value chain, can be stimulated?
Yes, I believe that climate change is a real and urgent challenge for all of us. We need to transform our economies and societies to decarbonize ones. And in this regard, new technologies are essential, and electric vehicles are a typical green technology, especially in the area of transportation. And we all know that Zimbabwe is so endowed with the various natural resources, and the lithium has been recently really attracting much attention from all over the world. We are so envious about that. I understand that government of Zimbabwe are now trying to promote more beneficiation of lithium instead of just exporting lithium ore, which may bring about more added value for Zimbabwe. The further technological development and the building of a favorable business environment would certainly strengthen Zimbabwe's competitiveness. Maybe lithium is one of the promising factor.
It's very promising, and an area where Japanese companies can be looking into. So obviously, if you can come to the source to get your lithium, it obviously cuts down your production. Now, I want to move on to something which is very important, Ambassador. In February, the government of Japan extended support to Zimbabwe by signing over 1.44 million United States dollars. It's about 200 million Japanese yen grant with the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, to support capacity building of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Now, of course, as you're aware, Zimbabwe will go to the harmonized elections on August the 23rd, 2023, where all positions will be up for grabs in the electoral process. So it's interesting to know what was behind, what inspired this donation, and also are you aware what is going to be spent on and how it's going to create capacity, particularly for Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and the upcoming elections?
Yes, it's correct. Japan supports through UNDP mainly the capacity building of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission Actually, this is the second phase of the project following the successful implementation of the first phase. I'd like to add that the upcoming elections are very important because they will give Zimbabweans the opportunity to decide the form of their own government and also the basic direction of their own country. Japan's assistance is specifically focused on the areas of inclusivity, ensuring that all eligible citizens, especially women, youths, and those living with disability, are informed and engaged in the electoral process. Everyone deserves to have the opportunity to cast their votes based on the provisions of your constitution. And the credibility of these elections will have a very major impact on Zimbabwe's future development. I think if these elections are held in a very free, fair, and peaceful manner, it will open doors for Zimbabwe's economic and social recovery. I really expect that.
I hope so too, sir. I hope so too. Now, I want to turn to something which is very important to African countries, and that's the reform of the United Nations, particularly the Security Council. Now, Japan is one of the G4 nations that is actually seeking reform of the Security Council. There have been calls for a permanent member from Africa to sit on the council, and even the veto powers of the council are something that the rest of the world doesn't seem to agree with, particularly the what we call the Big Five, who can veto everything. So, can you speak to me on the importance of Japan's stance with regards to reform of the Security Council?
Since the establishment of the United Nations in 1945, number of member states has increased from 51 to 193, and the structure of the international community has changed significantly. On the other hand, the Security Council may not be able to perform its functions due to the vetoes by permanent members. The current Ukraine crisis is one of the examples, really typical examples. We strongly believe that as the international situation changes, the Security Council should also change in order to have more legitimacy, effectiveness, and representativeness. Japan, as part of the G4 with Germany, India, and Brazil, has been proposing to expand the number of permanent members and review the vetoes. Japan has also expressed its support for a permanent seat for Africa, because without permanent members from Africa, how can the Council reflect African interests at the core level of decision making and help to address historical injustice to Africa? Japan intends to cooperate with African countries and other countries concerned and actively work on strengthening the functions of the United Nations, including reform of the Security Council.
So when I was doing my research, I understood in Zimbabwe in particular, non-communicable diseases or NCDs are seriously on the increase. Here we're talking about the five. It could be coronary, it could be mental health issues, it could be diabetes, cancers. They seem to be on the increase here. But of course, Japan on the other side has probably the highest life expectancy in the world. It's around 84 years old in 2021. And that seems to be about healthy lifestyles and a robust healthcare system that the country enjoys. Now, one thing that's important is Japan's system. It's regarded as second to none in terms of the quality healthcare it gives to its citizens. Again, we also try and learn lessons from our friends. What lessons can we learn as a country in terms of looking at how to improve our healthcare system, how to improve the lifestyles of our citizens, possibly even the diets? Because I know when I was in Japan, I ate a lot of fish, and that helped me a lot. Maybe you could comment on that synergies that we can learn from you to make us live longer.
Thank you for interesting questions, but I'm not an expert in this field. But I understand that the current long life expectancy in Japan is attributed to many reasons, such as advancement of medical knowledge and technology, of course, and decreased infant mortality and development of infrastructure again, including a safe water supply system. Also, Japan has a universal health insurance coverage system through which all citizens are covered by public medical insurance. It is a type of social insurance system in which public subsidies are spent to maintain universal health insurance coverage. Actually, almost 90% of the national medical expenses are covered by public subsidies and insurance premiums. And patients only have to pay 10 to 30% of their medical costs at the medical facilities. So people don't need to hesitate to see a doctor. And generally speaking, as you said, many Japanese people care about their health. There is a Japanese saying, hara hachi bunme. That means eating no more than 80% full.
Okay.
Just 80% taguta is very important. Also, Japanese people drink tea without sugar. These daily dietary habits, day by day, are very, very important.
Yeah, you're right. Healthy lifestyle, because that's exactly what all the doctors I've spoken to. And yeah, you're right. Tea without sugar is one of the major causes of cancer. And of course, a lot of exercising. I see a lot of Japanese when I was there in the parks doing Tai Chi, is it? Or yoga, which is very excellent. So there's something which is coming up in Japan, which I regard as very exciting, because I just attended the Dubai Expo 2020. Which was last year, and we had the pavilion there, Zimbabwe. And of course, Japan will be hosting the next one, the World Expo 2025, in another beautiful city, Osaka, in Japan, under the theme Designing Future Society for Our Lives. Maybe I'll break this into two questions. My first question is how important is this Expo to Japan?
Expo is an event that brings together people and innovations from around the world in an effort to address issues facing humanity on a global scale. 2 decades after the Aichi Expo 2005, Expo 2025 Osaka Kansai will bring the international community back to Japan. Traditionally, a world exposition is a place where new technologies and products are born, triggering a greater convenience in our daily lives. And Expo 2025 Osaka Kansai is a 6-month event from the 13th April to 13th of October, of course, into 2025. With the theme, Designing Future Society for Our Lives. And 3 sub-themes, that is Saving Lives, which focuses on protecting life, and Empowering Lives, which focuses on improving the lives of individuals and helping them reach their potential, and Connecting Lives, focusing on building communities and engagement. Under these themes, I believe the Expo will contribute to the entire world addressing the problems we face and achieving the SDGs. I believe this makes hosting the World Expo 2025 Osaka Kansai the ideal occasion to share a vision of a future society with our fellow people from all over the world.
Now, the Expo itself has 5 features of its master plan. The first one which is very interesting, because I saw the design of where the Expo will be built, venue where you can feel the sea and sky, because it's literally being built right on the sea almost. So maybe we can talk about that. It also, as you said, ideas for a future society for our lives from around the world. where you can see future technologies. I think that's also important because Japan is in the forefront of designing and creating new technologies and social systems. I think that's important. Expo, where you can enjoy real entertainment. I like that part because I can have some fun there. And of course, committed to comfort, safety, and sustainability. Is there any part of that you'd like to comment on?
At this expo, many international organizations, companies, NGOs, and so on will participate. And we will introduce our efforts to create a future society. The concept of this expo is to introduce future technologies by utilizing social systems and advanced technologies such as carbon neutrality, digital technologies, and next generation mobility at the venue. In addition, for the experience of visitors, there will be music and performing art events, water shows, and projection mapping, traditional performing arts, and pop culture events, and so on, where you can feel the rich culture of Japan. Actually, Kansai is a region of ancient capitals, and I believe you can enjoy visiting historical cities such as Kyoto and Nara. As mentioned before, taking advantage of Japan's characteristics as an island country surrounded by the sea, the venue is planned to be a place where you can feel the rich nature of Japan, such as the sky and the sea. In order to ensure a comfortable stay for visitors, we will introduce an advanced admission reservation system to avoid the excessive congestion. We will also focus on measures to prevent infectious diseases and natural disasters, and that are very important for them to stay safely there.
I think it looks like it's going to be a place to be in 2025. And I suppose the question is how many visitors or exhibitors from what countries? What are you expecting? What is the Expo organizers expecting in 2025?
We are expecting 28.2 million in total, and 3.5 million of which are overseas visitors from all over the world for this expo. I believe this is a precious opportunity to visit and experience Japan. We will be waiting for you all.
I probably will be there, Ambassador, no doubt about it. Yeah. Now, Ambassador, I want to move to something which in our research we found that your embassy here is very passionate about. And this is spreading smiles throughout Zimbabwe. It's guidelines for grant assistance for grassroots projects. Japan has supported rehabilitation of the unit in Harare Central Hospital, construction of Child Protection Center in Chipinge, a safe house in Epworth for women and children, improvement of X-ray equipment of Mashoko Christian Hospital in Bikita. And that's just a few of the projects that was funded by your country, Japan. Can you take us through exactly the process? Who can apply? What sort of grants are available? How to apply? What sort of projects are open to that sort of funding? And also, I suppose, how important it is for not just yourself personally, but also your own country to these humanitarian GBV projects, because they do appear to be at the forefront of some of the work that you are doing in Zimbabwe.
Thank you for your deep research into our program. We have our grassroots grant assistance project, or GGP program, which has thus far funded 150 projects all over this country, with funding of over 15.5 million US dollars. In implementing this program, an embassy works directly with NGOs to meet the diverse needs of local communities. The project covers many sectors, ranging from education, healthcare, food security, water and sanitation, to child protection, the prevention of gender-based violence, or support for people living with disabilities. It allows us to directly connect with communities and provide their basic needs. The eligible organizations are non-governmental organizations which are working for socioeconomic development at the grassroots level. The maximum amount of the GGP grant is 10 million Japanese yen. That is around 72,000 US dollars. Now, exchange rate is a really headache for us. For more detailed information, you can find the guidelines and application on the embassy's website. When you apply for the project, you need to send your project proposal to the embassy. We receive many proposals every year. That's why we cannot support all the proposals, unfortunately. You asked on the importance of these projects. One of the pillars of our cooperation with Zimbabwe is to ensure human security, especially for vulnerable people. We believe that in order for Zimbabwe to achieve sustainable development, it is necessary to build a sound and fair society in which everyone can enjoy the benefits of economic development. Even now, I understand the standard of living of vulnerable Zimbabweans has been really deteriorating due to the economic instability, as well as the droughts and cyclones that have occurred in recent years. Many people are experiencing a dire situation in terms of accessing adequate healthcare, education, food security. In addition, women are faced with gender inequality and sometimes gender-based violence. We hope all vulnerable people can enjoy the same economic and social benefits without being left behind.
It's very important, Ambassador, and compliments to your country and your embassy for putting those sort of projects in the forefront of your cooperation with Zimbabwe. I want to now look at something which, of course, Zimbabwe is well known for, I believe, and that, of course, is the tourist attractions. I mean, I could go through them: Victoria Falls, Great Zimbabwe, Matopos, in Nyanga. I'm sure you yourself, sir, have probably visited some of them. In fact, I believe we met in Victoria Falls, if I'm not mistaken. So can you speak to me, please, Ambassador, about the potential you see to open up tourism opportunities between Japan and Zimbabwe? Because speaking to other ambassadors, there seems to be possibly a misinformation or misunderstanding of what's available, or even access to tourist packages that will get Japanese citizens here. But maybe the potential of the opportunities that we can reap or benefit between our nations.
Yes, in the 2.5 years I have been in Zimbabwe, I have visited many places. All of them are very impressive, especially, as you said, Victoria Falls, Manapus, Gonarezo, Wange, Matopos, and Nyanga. They are very wonderful for their beautiful and unspoiled nature. It would be beneficial to promote the attractiveness of Zimbabwe's tourist destinations by using opportunities such as tourism expos and trade fairs, and disseminating information through the Embassy of Zimbabwe in Tokyo, as well as SNS and other forms. At the same time, it would be useful and really effective to lay the groundwork for more tourists, such as through increasing international and domestic flights, and maybe improving public transportation between cities in Zimbabwe, so that tourists can enjoy visiting various places around the country, not just in Victoria Falls.
No, I agreed. Yeah, we were talking about that in terms of access. People like to come to the country, fly from there to Nyanga and so forth, but going by road with the infrastructure can be quite difficult. Now, looking at it the other way, though, I mean, Japan, as you said, when you were talking about Osaka 2025, about visitors coming to visit Kyoto, for example, I mean, Mount Fuji in the Fujiakone Izu National Park, the island shrine of Itsukushima, I hope I pronounced that right, in Miyajima, and Atsuta Shrine in Nagoya. I mean, I'm sure there's many more. I could go on doing it. So what about the potential of Zimbabweans or even people in sub-Saharan Africa now becoming more interested in making Japan a destination for their holidays, their vacations, or just to visit?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to promote Japanese tourism. As you point out, Japan should be one of the very popular tourist destinations for Zimbabweans because of its beautiful nature, vibrant cities, ancient buildings, and cutting-edge technology, rich culture, and Japanese food, washoku, which is now a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. As you may know, Japan has 4 colorful seasons, and Japan is a long island country with a completely different facet depending on the seasons and regions. Another unique point is that each region has its own festivals, special products, foods, and souvenirs. The biggest hurdles may be the long distance from Zimbabwe to Japan. But even considering this distance, I feel that given its many attractions, Japan ought to be a popular destination for Zimbabweans. And I would say that people of all ages, including children, would enjoy visiting Japan. And if I can give some advice to Zimbabwean tourists visiting Japan, one thing you may miss is sada. Because it's very difficult to find it in Japan. Okay. And also winter in Japan is very cold compared to winter in Zimbabwe. So it would be better for you to bring a warm jacket.
Also, there is another thing which I like the comparison is our jacaranda trees and your cherry blossoms. It's a similar kind of, and it's so beautiful when they bloom. It's fantastic. I remember I was in Tokyo. In fact, outside the Emperor's Palace, they've got all those trees. It was beautiful.
Best place.
The best place.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. That's excellent. Let's talk culture, Ambassador, because obviously culture is sometimes the best way for two peoples to understand each other. I mean, again, looking at some of the research, the strong cultural heritage. Gaido, is that how you pronounce it? The way of art, encompassing many forms of traditional culture. There's Seido, the tea ceremony. Keido, flower arranging. Shodo, calligraphy. And bonsai are all well-established traditional Japanese arts. Zimbabwe, of course, has Shona sculpture. We got traditional music and dance, and so on, and traditional paintings, and so on. Has there been any cultural exchanges between Zimbabwe and Japan? And do you think this is one area that we could expand or boost? Because as I said, it really is one way of people's understanding each other. Art is universal, so to speak.
As part of cultural exchange, I would like to introduce our exchange through sport, for instance. I am glad that the 2 martial arts originating in Japan, that is judo and karate, they are becoming more and more popular in Zimbabwe. And Embassy of Japan sponsors a judo and karate tournament once a year. And I was surprised that a lot of youngsters participated and performed very well. Also, Embassy of Japan has a school visit program. That a school visit program to introduce Japanese culture to Zimbabwean children. Traditional Japanese tea ceremony and origami and calligraphy all especially popular. Japan, Zimbabwe are countries with different cultures. But interestingly, we can find some points in common. For example, the pronunciation of Shona is very close to that of
Ambassador Tanaka.
Yes, yes. Zou in Shona and Zou in Japanese. That's the same meaning, elephant. And as you said, my name is Tanaka. Has a very nice meaning in Shona. We are good. But in Japanese, Tanaka means in the middle of a rice paddy.
Oh, okay.
Quite different.
Yeah, quite different.
But Shona is a difficult language, but it's a language that Japanese people can feel very familiar with. Also, in terms of cultural exchange, Jenaguru Art Center Dance and Music often visit Japan and showcase traditional Zimbabwean games such as Nodo, Pada, Chisel.
Wow, yeah.
I'm not
Yes.
quite sure what
No,
they
it's
are.
okay.
Zimbabwean traditional dances. They also play traditional Japanese games like kendama, that is a cup and ball game, wanage, that is a ring toss game, and janken, that is a rock paper scissors game. This has been happening for over a decade, and I look forward to more cultural exchange being promoted in the future.
So tell me, can you do judo and karate, sir?
I hope so. But
Okay.
unfortunately not.
Unfortunately not. Okay, well, anyway. Now, finally, Ambassador, thank you for such a long sitting with me for all this time. But I'd like to talk to you about your vision of the future of between our two countries. What would be your main focus looking at stimulating trade, commerce, tourism, for example, some of the main pillars that you'd like to see promotion or the low-hanging fruit between Japan and Zimbabwe? What do you think could be realized in the short, medium, or long term? Because I do see just because the numbers decrease shows there is potential to take them to the old numbers and even go beyond that. And really, there's a lot of avenues to increase cooperation, increase understanding, create tourism, investment between the two countries. What is your vision and your nation's vision here?
Thank you very much for your very important question. That is what we are always questioning ourselves. And Zimbabwe and Japan have enjoyed the cordial relations over the past 40 years. I would like to play a role in deepening and expanding our relations. And in the short term, I believe that steadily implementing and even expanding the current government-to-government cooperation is very important. This includes, of course, the support for the free, fair, inclusive, and peaceful elections that will demonstrate Zimbabwe's democracy and stability to the international community. And in the medium term, I hope more Japanese people visit Zimbabwe. And of course, more Zimbabwean people go to Japan. It was really a pity that the COVID-19 pandemic prevented the interaction of our two peoples. Whether they are tourists or athletes or artists, business people or government officials, the people of our two countries can directly communicate and understand each other for their respective purposes. And more longer-term perspective, I hope that more Japanese companies will restart their operation in Zimbabwe. And we will expand our trade and investment relations. In this regard, we expect Zimbabwe implement its comprehensive reform agendas, which will collaterally benefit our business relations, of course, but essentially it will benefit all Zimbabwean people, I believe.
So we can see, hopefully, from now onwards, or even improving bilateral relationships, improving the friendship between our two nations, improving commerce and trade, and of course, improving our understanding of our two people.
Yes, I really hope that we can more deepening our relations and enjoy our lives together.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Satoshi Tanaka, many thanks for talking to ZTN Prime. So it's been a pleasure. Well, that was Ambassador Satoshi Tanaka, the representative of Japan to Zimbabwe, talking a very extensive interview with us here on ZTN Prime, Our Conversations. We talked about tourism, trade, culture. We even talked about whether the ambassador can do judo or karate or not. But anyway, please tune in to ZTN Prime every Friday on our Facebook page, Zim Papers TV Network, to watch Our Conversations, the program where I speak to leaders around Africa and the world. I speak to ambassadors, movers and shakers. I'm Andy Hodges. Goodbye, and please, you all be safe.